Hi, mai, kia ora tātou. It's great to have you all here. Ko Dave toku ingoa. Hey, kai tohu rangaho, toku tūranga mahi. My name's Dave. I'm the research director here at Academy EX, and it's a pleasure to be able to do this session. We wanted to do something, every so often we do these Let's Talk About sessions, and hopefully they attract an audience in different ways. Of course, at the moment, everybody's talking about AI, so we've got quite a lot of people interested in this particular session. It is oriented more towards the sort of education space, but I have tried to make it fairly general because I know not everybody here is necessarily coming from the education space. So I hope it's kind of, meets everybody's general needs. Anyway, without further ado, I will go and get my slides going, and then we'll make a start. First thing to say is, don't worry, I'm not going to put you in breakout rooms. I know that that's quite stressful for some of you, and I know people disappear occasionally. So, but I will be asking you to fill in a couple of sort of feedback things to get some ideas from you. So if you can be ready to do that, I'll be popping some little links into the chat from time to time so that you can access those resources. All right, without anything else to waffle on, just checking the chat. Okay, nothing to worry about there. Let's get started. Alrighty. Okay, so the title is AI literacy. What is it and why does it matter? And at least at the end of this session, you might have an opinion about what it is and whether it matters or not. That decision's up to you, really. And I'll talk about AI literacy as a thing towards the end of the session. I'll kind of begin with some broader topics. If you've got any questions to put in the chat, pop them in, and then I'll probably get a chance to have a look at those when you're doing the kind of feedback thing. So I won't be able to respond straight away, but I'll try and sort of look through when we have our pauses while you're doing something. And then if there's anything that needs to be picked up straight away, I'll try to do that. Okay, so one of the things we often try to do at Academy EX is pick a meaningful whakatauki when we start a session, and this one I thought was the most appropriate. Tino rangatiratanga mo tātou mo ka ori muriakane, the ability to create and control our destiny for generations to come. And I chose this one because it's one that's chosen by Karaitiana Tairu, who's our sort of foremost Māori data, AI, and technology ethicist. I saw him speak at last year's ASCA conference down in Canterbury, and so he's probably the most sort of well-known figure in AI from a Māori perspective. As he says, the reason he likes this whakatauki is there's a new generation of children who will not know life without AI, and it's our role to create the new normal for them. And I think that links in nicely to this idea about why do we need AI literacy. So what am I going to talk about? I'm going to do a bit of background. Some of you may be well familiar with this terminology. Just wanted to kind of cover off some basics so that you're kind of all on the same page. So I'm going to begin with just some some acronyms with AI in them, and then sort of address some of those big challenges and opportunities that I think many of us are concerned about in different ways. What does the future hold? And then in the second part, I want to focus a bit more on what is AI literacy, and along with some colleagues from University of Canterbury and AUT, I've been working on an AI literacy framework Delphi study, and I wanted to share some of that with you. And if you wish, you can contribute to some feedback on this, and we'll do that towards the end. So I'm going to ask you to do something now. I'm going to ask you to fill in an answer garden. If you're not familiar with answer garden, it's one of those fairly straightforward word clouds tools. Because it's a word cloud, when you respond, it's best if you can do single words. You can do more than one entry, but if you can do them separately. So there's a lot of chat about AI at the moment, particularly generative AI and what might be coming in the near future. So it's quite a febrile atmosphere. There's a lot of sort of stuff going on. What I'd like to know is what's your emotional response when you hear or read about AI at the moment. So, I mean, no judgment here. Whatever you feel is appropriate to put in. Just share your thoughts in this answer garden. I'm going to stop sharing momentarily because I'm going to pop that link into the chat so that you can easily get access to it. So just bear with me a second.
I was just trying to type it out, Dave, to see if I could help, but sorry, I missed it.
No, it's okay. I can copy it there. So you'll find in the chat the link. So that will take you to the answer garden. So put in as many different words as you like, or none, whatever you feel like. What are your kind of current emotional responses? I'm sure many of us are kind of a little bit conflicted about exactly how we feel about it at the moment. I'd be interested to know what you feel. So I'm going to give you a moment to do that. Um, Okay, nothing too desperate in the chat at the moment. Yeah, I'll put all the links in the chat. It just takes me a bit of time to faff about and find them. I did put them into a separate document, but I need about 15 screens. So, okay, I'm going to open up the answer garden myself and see how we're doing. Looking good already. I'll put it up on the screen in a moment when you've had a chance to put things in. Okay, I'm just going to reshare my screen for a moment, then you'll be able to see what's on there. Okay, lots of words. You can feel free to keep putting stuff in when we have a quick look at this. Of course, being a word cloud, the ones that come up more often are the ones that get bigger. So you can see that I think I'm encouraged by the fact that the biggest words, excited and curious, are kind of positive. I think that's good to see. Um, but there are a few others that are kind of on the other side. We've got overwhelmed, we've got fear, we've got worried. So there's a bit of a mix, isn't there? I'll just have a quick look around and see if there's anything else I want to. Trepidatious, excellent word. Um, Supernatural, interesting word. I was reading. I'll talk about Suleiman's book, the coming wave in a moment. But he talks about the way that ChatGPT works is his word is alien, and this is a man who's an AI expert who's been working in AI for years. He says that what it does is kind of alien to us. So I think the supernatural word is probably in the same ballpark. Fantastic. Okay, thanks for that. I think it's a really interesting set of yeah, Skynet. Obviously, you had to talk about that. Overlord, godlike. Yeah, if you categorize these, I'll get ChatGPT to categorize them later. There's a few different things in there, but yeah, many voices, many ideas, many concerns. Cool. So I'm gonna just stop that one for a second. I want to go back to my slide set. Cool. All right. Just gonna jump through a few key terms to make sure that we know what these things are supposed to mean. Um, So I wanted to start off just by talking about machine intelligence because we've had machine intelligence for a very long time. So machines have been able to do things better than humans in very specific ways for decades, right? So machine intelligence is where computers can manipulate symbols in ways that are sort of scales and complexity that we can't do. But they've been able to do that since the 1940s, right? They've been able to calculate more quickly than us since then. So the artificial intelligence is a bit different because it's about learning from, in some way, a human interaction. So the machine actually can learn in some way, and there's different ways of doing it. I won't go into those different ways, but there's different ways that we say that machines can learn. Recently, I mean, artificial intelligence as a concept has been again been around since the 1950s, and has moved very slowly at times, but recently has moved very quickly with what they call generative AI, where it makes things, right? So it can make text, images, sound, whatever, in new ways, or at least they appear to be new ways. They're new formulations of the stuff that it's seen. And very specifically, a lot of the talk is about what's called large language models, where they have a corpus of text, like the internet. And then from that large amount of text, they can sort of chat with you. So you have this concept of a chatbot, a large language model, and ChatGPT is probably the most well known. So those are the kind of key sort of terminologies that kicked around in this space. So, what do we mean by artificial intelligence? Well, I mean, no one agrees on this, so I've just sort of picked some sort of fairly safe things. Um, One of the first definitions, although it wasn't called artificial intelligence by him, was Alan Turing, and I'm sure you've all seen the movie of, the cracking of the code in the Second World War and all of the things that happened to Turing. But he's a very famous computer scientist. He came up with what's now known as the Turing test, though obviously he didn't call it that. He called it the imitation game, and it was very simple. He suggested if you had an observer who couldn't detect which of two participants in a conversation, and this was a text screen-based conversation, was a computer, then the test was passed. It's a bit more complicated than that, but that's kind of the essence of it. He developed it because he wanted to get away from people asking these weird questions like, can machines think? So he just came up with something that was much more mechanistic and like, you could judge it against a set of criteria. And at the moment, as you can imagine, people are saying, well, do these large language chat things pass the Turing test? Um, Interestingly, John McCarthy, who actually coined the term artificial intelligence, once said, as soon as it works, no one calls it AI anymore. And the reason I picked that quote was I think, it doesn't really matter now whether we think these things have passed the Turing test or not, because now we've got bigger fish to fry. We're worried about more bigger things, more important things. So maybe it has, maybe it hasn't, but I don't think that's important. The important thing is what else is going on. It's a lot more than a bit of a chat bot. And then there's this kind of thing, well, that's kind of original artificial intelligence. So what is it that we're looking at in the future? So there's this term called artificial general intelligence. So Turing was doing something very narrow, having a text-based conversation or talking about that. And that we call that narrow AI, among other things, where it's just focused on a single task. Whereas artificial general intelligence is something a little bit different. It's where AI can do more than us in lots of things, where it becomes a general cognitive thing. And there's a lot of debate about how close we are or not with that. So we're kind of on this journey, and we don't really know what the destination is or how long it's going to take us to get there. So we're like small children in the back of the car, are we there yet? We don't even know where we're going, but we keep asking. So what's all this stuff about generative AI? So all of the interest lately has been not about earlier types of AI, of which there have been many, but generative AI, and that's things like ChatGPT for text, DALL-E for pictures, and like 1,000 others. Um, it grows out of this concept of machine learning, and we've had that for a long time. But traditional machine learning was fairly straightforward in the sense that we would take some data and we would know the categories of that data. This is a cat, this is a dog, for example, and we give lots of examples to the AI, and then when it saw something else, it would be able to compare its data and know whether it was a cat or a dog. But it's all very structured, and the machine's kind of been told how to do the categorization. It's a little bit different. So, like I put on the slide there, like face recognition on your phone. You give it enough versions of your face, so it reads them quite quickly, and then it can see whether the next face it sees is you or not, because it's just looking at the data it's already been given. Um, Generative AI is a bit different. It's not looking at your face and saying it's you. It's generating a new face or a new video or something else that wasn't there before. Um, and it's not just that. It can be game strategies, DNA strands, a multitude of things. At the moment, it's not time traveling robots, but pretty much anything that you can represent in data can be done by this. And in contemporary world, everything is data, right? Everything is represented by data. So it is a bit of a game changer. So that's why everybody's talking about it and why all of those words on the word cloud are potentially a little bit alarming at times. Now, you might be familiar with this website. There's an AI for that, which is, of course, playing on the old trope of there's an app for that. Um, so there's an AI for everything, but it might not be any good. Well, it probably isn't any good. So one of the problems we have is like there's thousands of things on this website. How do you know if what they do is worth doing? How do you know if they're just there to burn, to rob you blind, or do something horrible to a computer, or are they amazing productivity tools? I don't know, where do you start? So one of the things we need to start knowing, I suppose, is how do we find our way through this enormous maze of chat and product that's now here in this AI space. I'd be interested to know at this point from you if you've had a go at any types or categories of AI tool. Now, I'm asking here, as it says at the bottom, not for a specific tool, but a type of tool. So, for example, if you used an image creator, I'd be interested for you to tick that box. Um, and even if you've only like tried something once for a couple of minutes, that's fine. I'm just going to show you the poll, and then I'll put the link in the chat. So these are the ones the general categories that I put in, and I put examples in as a bit of a hint. I'm not sure if they'll help or not. So chatbots, image creators, slide set creators, video creators, search and research engines, music creators, infographic creators, website creators, and because there's so many others, I've got an other box. If you wish, you can leave a comment. It's entirely up to you. It's just an option that's available in Crowd Signal. Right, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to pop that into the chat. And then I'll give you a minute or two to put in your responses, and we'll take a look at the output in a moment.
Apologies, I tried to pop the link in, but I think I didn't quite get the right number
I've got
list there,
a
Dave.
document,
Sorry.
Evie, with them all in, but
If you want to send it to me, I can help. Just
I'll tell you what, while
look
they're
at my
doing
way.
this, sorry, I'm going to stop talking and press the enter button. Hang on, press enter. There we go. I will share the thing. Oh, you've done it, Evie. Yeah, okay, thank you. All right, so I'll give you a couple of minutes to do that. Is there anything else that I need to pay attention to in the chat? Does Blade Runner count? Oh, for sure. Yes, but that was from Evie, so it's not a proper question. Cool. Okay. I'll let you get on with that. I'm going to log into the back end so I can show you the result in a minute. And Evie, I'm just going to share that document with you that's got the links on. So
Yes,
that should
Dave,
have,
that'll be better than my typing if I can copy and paste.
yeah, it should have gone to your email, but I'll also
Obviously,
share the link with you in the chat. Um,
right. And then I shall assist where I can.
okay, so I've sent you that direct in the chat. Right, let's get into Crowd Signal and see what we've got. Awesome. Okay. Great. There's quite a few others. I'll just give it another sort of few seconds and then I'll pop the thing on the screen for you. Okay. And yeah, feel free to keep ticking boxes while I share this and just talk it through. So these are the results. I suppose unsurprisingly, I mean, if I'd sort of thought about which ones would be most popular, I'd probably have thought chatbots and image creators would probably be those. Um, as you can see, about 30% for chatbots like ChatGPT 2, but quite a fair number of people have been using some of the other ones, as you can see. If I click on Other on the right-hand side, we can kind of see what sort of things we've got. Social networks, Copilot. I don't know. I'm not sure who put that in. Is that the Copilot in the browser or the coding Copilot? Was anybody like to whoever put that in? Could you let me know? Feel free to turn your mic on. or not. That's fine.
Maybe it was
Good.
one of those AI note takers, Dave.
Oh yeah, but maybe it was. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Lesson plan creator. Excellent. Yeah. Document editor. Otter for minutes. Yeah. Oh, Gemini Copilot. Yeah. So this, unfortunately, the Copilot where it gets used a lot. So it's a little bit confusing sometimes. I've been using the coding Copilot that runs inside the Microsoft Visual Studio editor, but of course, there's lots of other things that also use the term Copilot. Awesome. No, thank you for that. That's great. It's good to see that there's a bit of a range of things that people have tried out. Um, but also, I mean, I guess it's also the case from these percentages that possibly there's quite a few people here who haven't tried anything yet. So hopefully you might be inspired to have a go at something a little bit later. Cool. All right, let's get rid of that. Jump back in.
And Dave, Manish Tana confirmed in the chat, Copilot browser.
Oh, right. Thank you. Yeah, cool. Thank you for that. Uh, Andy, funnily enough, I teach digital tech, but I have not used any AI sites. Well, I kind of get it. It's like you don't want to waste your time. You've got enough tech to worry about, and then you can't spend all day on there's an AI for that, wondering if anything's any good. So it is. I understand why you might not have kind of got around to it yet. Um, Cool. Oh, lesson plan creator was in Padlet. Oh, interesting. I didn't even know that, and we use Padlet all the time. Thank you for that. Of course, I guess that's the one thing that's happening is we might not be using any or going out and finding new AI tools, but we're probably finding the ones we're using already suddenly have all this AI in them. And there's a lot of things that are doing that. So it's not necessarily any good, but it's like, oh, there's an AI thing. Um, we One of the things that we do in one of the teaching programs is we sort of introduce a tool called Educa Play, and it used to be a bit clunky, but it's the AI and it's really good, and teachers seem to find it really well for younger kids, particularly seem to find it really cool. Generating all sorts of exciting stuff. Um, anyway, I better get on because I time is racing on, and I need to make sure I get through my very, very important presentation. Okay. So I just wanted to pick up the sort of big picture. So I've talked a little bit about terminology, about what you've done, what you feel about stuff. I wanted to take a step back and look at this sort of what is it all about in this sort of larger scale. So I wanted to talk about the challenges and opportunities. So we've got this kind of big debate going on at the moment. Everyone's an expert. There's quite an amusing thing I saw go around on Insta, I think it was, and I may have this slightly wrong, but the basic idea of it was that a cheetah is quite fast. No, a racing car is faster. The speed of light is faster than that, but the fastest thing in the world is people suddenly becoming experts in AI. So I'm not an expert, by the way, but I am very interested in it and trying to learn as much as I can. So the question is, is it just another tool? Is it just another thing that we add? I'm teaching, some tech stuff. Do I add in some AI? I'm using Canva to make an infographic. Should I do a bit of AI in it? There's that sort of level. Is it an amazing opportunity for growth and change? Is it driving us into, new heights of wealth and power and, whatever we want? Or is it the end of useful work? Is it an existential threat? Is it all of the above? I mean, I'm not sure that anybody really knows yet, but I wanted to sort of pick apart some of the big picture stuff. I wanted to play you a bit of this video. Things are going to get weird, which is quite entertaining. It picks up a couple of themes that I want to pick up afterwards. I'm just playing like a 2-minute snapshot of this video, so it won't be too long. Hopefully the sound works. I always worry about that.
What happens when general purpose AI hits the real economy? How do things change? Can we adapt? This is a very old point. Amazingly, Aristotle actually has a passage where he says, look, if we had fully automated weaving machines and plectrums that could pluck the lyre and produce music without any humans, then we wouldn't need any workers. That idea, which I think it was Keynes who called it technological unemployment in 1930, is very obvious to people, right? They think, yeah, of course, if the machine does the work, then I'm going to be unemployed. If you think about the warehouses that companies are currently operating for e-commerce, they are half automated. The way it works is that an old warehouse where you've got tons of stuff piled up all over the place and humans go and rummage around and then bring it back and send it off. There's a robot who goes and gets the shelving unit that contains the thing that you need, but the human has to pick the object out of the bin or off the shelf because that's still too difficult. But, at the same time, could you make a robot that is accurate enough to be able to pick pretty much any object, and there's a very wide variety of objects that you can buy, and that would, at a stroke, eliminate 3 or 4 million jobs. There's an interesting story that E.M. Forster wrote where everyone is entirely machine dependent. The story is really about the fact that if you hand over the management of your civilization to machines, you then lose the incentive to understand it yourself or to teach the next generation how to understand it. And you can see Wall-E actually as a modern version where everyone is enfeebled and infantilized by the machine. And that hasn't been possible up to now, right? We put a lot of our civilization into books, but the books can't run it for us. And so we always have to teach the next generation. If you work it out, it's about 1 trillion person years of teaching and learning and an unbroken chain that goes back tens of thousands of generations. What happens if that chain breaks? And I think that's something we have to understand as AI moves forward.
Okay, I just wanted to pick that one out because I really like this idea of we have to maintain this chain of teaching and learning in the face of change. I thought that was a very interesting concept.
What happens when
okay, just make this bigger. Yeah, just a couple of other sort of ideas, I suppose, that I've been thinking about lately. I recently read this Coming Wave book. Mustafa Suleiman was the guy who founded DeepMind, and the company he has now is the one that developed the protein folding AI that's completely revolutionized this whole idea about how sort of synthetic biology works. So he really knows what he's talking about. But I kind of thought this quote was interesting about the pace of change. People talk about the pace of change all the time, but he says, consider that children who grew up traveling by horse and cart and burning wood for heat in the late 19th century spent their final days traveling by airplane and living in houses warmed by the splitting of the atom. And that was just the speed of change, almost 100 years ago. So, now we're kind of looking at lots of those sort of, weasel words about hyperchange and so on. But we have to be ready for the fact that things are changing insanely fast. And this is a big change. So this article from Forbes magazine talks about the implications of the AI era for societies. And it's not just about technology. It's not just about what's going to happen to business and work. It prompts crucial questions about the evolving roles of humans as machines gain cognitive capabilities. And so I think these are the things that we're trying to grapple with now. We have to give it some thought now about what it is that we want to happen or how we're going to tackle with this. I thought I'd lighten the mood a bit with Robert Sheckley's The Cost of Living. Robert Sheckley's a wonderful science fiction author. All his stories they're often dark, but they're also very entertaining. And it has one book, this short story actually, where he talks about the final skilled job, which is the master repairman. Of course, it's very sexist, being written in the 1952s. It had to be a man. The repairmen were the elite. It was their job to fix the automatic repair machines. The repair machines could fix just about anything, but you couldn't have a machine fix the machine that fixed the machine. That was where the master repairman came in. Everybody else just sat there watching a conveyor belt go by and testing the occasional product. But there is all of that worry, isn't there, about, well, is it going to take my job? And I should have done a poll about, are you worried that AI will take your job? But maybe that will be too worrying. One more thing I just wanted to briefly touch on is some of you may have seen Ben Reed's very recently published a book called Fast Forward Aotearoa, which is freely available. You can just download it for free. He talks about the singularity. People have different definitions of the singularity. Ray Kurzweil kind of talks about it where we sort of merge with machines. Other people just talk about it when the computers get better than us at everything. But the idea of the law of accelerating returns, that speed of change, is something that he claims is kind of missing from our political discourse and education. And so I just picked it up because of that. Maybe again, one of the reasons for having this discussion tonight is having these conversations around what does this mean for particularly education as well as the other aspects of life that are important. I won't read the rest of the quote, but have a look at the book if you're interested. So, and then finally, something a bit more sort of, good old Bill, nice and bland statement about education. Computers haven't had the effect on education that many of us in the industry have hoped, but I think in the next 5 to 10 years, AI-driven software will finally deliver on the promise of revolutionizing the way people teach and learn. Yeah, we've been talking about the impact of technology on teaching and learning for a very long time. And of course, in a way, we don't notice the changes because they're kind of subtle. So there have been enormous changes, but maybe we haven't seen the changes in outcomes that we would ideally like. So just something to think about. So that's some big picture stuff. Okay, so what next? So what's the point of me sort of going on about, robots from the future and only one job and so on? We've got a bit of a sense of urgency now about how do we tackle AI? What are the set of skills and competencies that we need? And when I say we, I mean, we particularly mean the people we're educating, but actually everybody. How do we, what do we need to know to adapt to this new environment? And so that's kind of what AI literacy is all about. So I want to spend the last part of this session tonight digging a little bit into this AI literacy space and thinking about what it might mean for us. Now, you're probably thinking, well, hang on a minute, there's literacies coming out of my ears. For a long time, we've had the native literacies, if you like, the 3 Rs, reading, writing, and arithmetic. But over recent sort of decades, I think we've been seeing people adding more and more literacies. So this is not a full list, but media literacy, digital literacy, data literacy, financial, spatial, linguistic, gestural. If you sort of Google different types of literacy, it just goes on and on and on. And so the question is, well, oh God, do we really need another one? Have I got to do this? One of the reasons I thought about this was a few months ago, I mentioned this idea of AI literacy in one of our teachers' postgrad sessions. And one of the teachers said to me, well, you want me to worry about AI literacy, and I've got kids coming in who can't hold a pencil. And I sort of took her point. Um, but I guess we have to worry about, yes, we want kids to be able to handle a pencil, but we also should be aware of what's going to happen in the future, particularly to those kids who are young enough to be not yet holding a pencil. What's their future and how do we prepare them? So, I mean, I guess I'm saying I think we do need AI literacy, although I totally understand educators going, I've got so many things I'm supposed to be doing already. So what is it? Well, actually, the term's not very old. The first person who actually wrote it down as a term in an article was Yoko Konishi in 2016 in a sort of little business article, and she talked about AI literacy and defined it as recognizing the tasks that AI can do, and as a result then learning and investing in the human strengths it can't replace. Although of course I think that gets harder and harder now as time goes on. Lots of people have lately sort of come up with ideas about what they think AI literacy might be like. I've picked one of many examples. Long and McGurko's 5 themes, which is very broad. What is AI? What can it do? How does it work? What should it do? And how do we perceive it? Which I think is an interesting thing, and lots of people have kind of built on this and talked about it in different ways. But it's not really enough to do anything with, really. It's just a few ideas about what we might need to be thinking about. I hope you like this. I thought I'll ask ChatGPT to make me a picture of AI literacy, and it came up with this, which I think is fabulous. I think it's endearingly awful. But if my kid brought it home from school, it would definitely go on the fridge. Um, so ChatGPT's attempted to explain it at the bottom. Here's a picture representing AI literacy. It includes a simplified human brain, as you can see, this horrible blob here, an AI icon, a book labeled AI 101, and the arrows indicate the connection between human intelligence and the importance of literacy and understanding AI concepts, although I've got no idea what this arrow is trying to do here. I like it because it's so awful. So it's still got a way to go, right? It's still we're still better than AI at a lot of things. But it's I think the point is there's a lot to AI literacy. You can't actually capture it in something very simple. Now, I'm going to ask you to give me another feedback item. And I know that my lovely assistant, Evie, is on the ball with the link for a Google form. So there are 6 questions in here, and they're Likert scale. And don't worry, it's not a test. I'm just curious as to where you think you are now in these. I'll explain why I think they're measures of AI literacy in a moment. And you'll see on the right-hand side, there's a picture of you, well, possibly, people from a range of backgrounds exploring AI literacy together online and sharing their ideas. And as always, DALL-E is incapable of building a face, but it's still, quite a nice picture. Okay, I'm going to let you get on with giving me some feedback in there. And I'm just going to go a bit of a launch back through the chat while that's happening and just see if there's anything I'll pick up later. So I'll just let you get on with that for a moment.
To say, Dave, that's quite a scary image, and I'm worried that our faces are going to start melting as we explore AI literacy.
Almost definitely. Gosh, there's a lot of chat. I wonder if I'll just have a quick read through.
Somebody, Dave, wanted to know if you would be able to share the slides afterwards.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll share the
One of
slides
them.
afterwards. Yeah, absolutely. I'm not quite. I imagine they'll probably go back through Maheshi, but someone will share the slides with everybody who came tonight. Oh yeah, and I see there was a comment about whether you can access the readings on the slides. Yeah, I've got URLs underneath each source, so you can go and sort of dig them out and have a look at them later if you're interested. Oh, Tim thought the diagram was terrible. I loved it. I found it most endearing, but I guess there's levels of terrible. Okay,
No,
I'm gonna. Sorry.
I was saying, Dave, I had one just like that the other day when I typed in a prompt and it just made this weird line diagram and tried to explain it to me.
Right.
I'm not sure what I did wrong, but yeah, it didn't do what I wanted it to do.
Yeah, it's not bad at. I asked it to do a diagram the other day on some qualitative data and categorize it into a diagram. It did quite a good job. I mean, it didn't draw the diagram well, but it did the sort of shape of the diagram using like one of those 1980s computer prints out of the Starship Enterprise where it's all just asterisks and lines and all that stuff. It was one of those. Very nostalgic for those of us who were around with computers in the 1980s. Okay, so I'm just going to jump into the back end of that survey so we can look at the results. Okay, I've got 31 so far. How many people have we got in the room?
49.
Okay,
And a
so
high court judge.
some of you may still be doing this, but what I'll do is let's have a quick look at the responses in the not very sophisticated Google backend.
And
Okay.
Dave, sorry, just a quick question from
Yes.
Angela Webster around the use of the survey, how responses might be used. Is this just for tonight?
Oh yeah. This is not a research study. This is just leading into something else I want to talk about. Just so you didn't get too bored listening to me wittering on endlessly. So no, I won't be using this for anything. It's okay. All right, so if you look at the color coding on the sort of Likert thing, the blue is the no idea, and then it goes up to the purple. So if you go round clockwise from blue, then that's kind of where people are placing themselves. So half of you have think you to some extent you can identify when people are using AI. It's an interesting question, isn't it? Because it's like sometimes it's someone's talking to their phone, one of those voice assistants, then it's fairly obvious, but it's not always that easy, is it? So how do we know there's an AI in there? And also, what type of AI is it? So I think that's an interesting one. So how well can you identify the different types of AI? There's definitely a lot bigger of a no idea space there. So I guess there's some things there that might be, that perhaps we could usefully develop further in our sort of general literacy around this space. Um, the role of data in systems and the implications data has on models. Um, there's a reasonable number of well in there. That's higher than the other two. That's interesting. Um, selecting tools for a task. Yeah, I guess we're all kind of still a bit unsure about that. Assessing the benefits to society. A big number on to some extent, and impacting on diversity and bias. Again, I mean, these do vary, but we're not getting very much in the high end. But at least we've got a very well here, which is excellent. Well done, whoever that is. Good work. So, yeah, I think as you can see, as a collective, we probably could develop quite a lot more in this space. Okay, thank you for that. So, if you're wondering why I asked those questions, they're actually part of our AI literacy framework. So I'll kind of loop back round to that in a moment. Um, so, we talked about what is AI literacy in a very, very brief sort of introduction, but what's an AI literacy framework? Um, so lots of people have written about what things AI literacy might involve, but it's not really enough to really do something with it. For example, how do we structure learning, or how do we develop whether someone's literate or not? We have to have something a bit more organized. So I asked ChatGPT, obviously, what it thought an AI literacy framework was, and it told me an AI literacy framework is a structured approach to understanding, teaching, and learning about artificial intelligence. Okay, so far. It's designed to provide a comprehensive set of guidelines, competencies, and knowledge areas necessary for individuals to effectively engage with and understand AI technologies. I don't normally like what ChatGPT writes because it is incredibly bland and tedious, but I couldn't really argue with that. I thought that was actually quite a reasonable definition. But the key thing I think, and well, we think as a research team, is you've got to have some measure of progress, because how do you, when you say can do something, and with the sort of questions I asked you before, where it's just a kind of a lick at, how do you show progression? How do you measure that? How do you help people to move through? So that's kind of the role of a framework. It's all very well to say, AI literacy is about, knowing when AI is being used, but of course it's got to be more than that to actually make something of it. So I guess that's what we've been trying to do. So we've got this AI literacy research project that we've been working on for a while. So as I mentioned before, it's a sort of a joint effort between ourselves, University of Canterbury, and AUT. We used a thing called a Delphi study. Some of you may have come across a Delphi study before. It's basically like an anonymous conversation between experts. And they go through several rounds. So you start off by appointing an expert panel. So you try and find as many people who are in fact experts, and not just pretend ones, as you can. And then you get them to kind of come up with their suggestions, and then you try and collate it all together, and then you send them back out and they rank them to identify the most important things and edit and so on. And then you tidy all that up, you send it out again, and then they put their suggestions, and eventually they reach a consensus that's come from that expert group. And it's anonymous, so that there's no kind of personal bias in there. No one knows who's on the panel, no one knows who suggested what. So it's a little bit like blind peer review. So it's meant to maintain the sort of the objectiveness of the process. So we've got that link there. You can feel free to share that in the chat, Evie, if anybody's interested. It's not that important, but just in case anybody wants to have a quick look at the page. And there's some stuff on there that has got some detail. And what I really wanted to do for this last little section was just introduce you to the framework, and talk a little bit about it, and why we think it may or may not be helpful. So one of the things that we did, and not many frameworks do this, is divide it up into levels, because we wanted to show progressions. And this went around the houses a few times. It looks a bit odd on the slide because I had to kind of squeeze it onto the slide in landscape mode, but it starts at the level 1, And then you've got level 2, then level 3. And level 4 is kind of what we see as beyond AI literacy, because not everybody needs to be an expert, but there is an expert level. So the literacy is levels 1, 2, and 3, really, but the fundamentals are in level 1. And so the idea is that it's not supposed to be age-based. It's not supposed to be like, oh, this is secondary school, this is university, this is postgrad. It's much more about just I suppose, a capability model that you can kind of say, well, this is where you start, and then if you want to go further, then this is where you go next, I guess. So we've got 4 levels. I won't go through the detail; it's not necessary. And then through the Delphi study, we sort of evolved a series of categories of data. So what we ended up with was 3 sort of main groupings: AI concepts, the application of AI and technical skills, and then the issues, challenges, and opportunities. So those are kind of real big picture things. And then under each one of those, we ended up with 2 other sort of subcategories. So under the concepts, we had the impact of AI, and then what it is and how it works. And then the AI technical skill stuff, the applications, there's the cognitive and the applied skills. And then under the sort of issues, challenges, and opportunities, we've got social and ethical issues, and then specific challenges and opportunities underneath. So that kind of emerged from the Delphi. Um, as you can imagine, when you have something that sort of emerges from a collective, it's not necessarily what you're expecting, but I think we've kind of been working with this and think it has some value. One of the reasons I wanted to do the little quiz thing with you earlier was that this is level 1, and you can see that there's a few sort of things that we would expect to see in this. And so, I mentioned before about what's the point of a framework. The idea is that you can specifically say what's required to be literate in that area, and then you can also use it to teach and measure progress. So you can actually then develop those skills and think about, well, first of all, how do I know whether people can identify when people are using AI? How do I develop that skill better? How do I foster that AI literacy? So if you look closely, you'll find that the 6 questions I asked are one from each of these 6 categories. So that's level 1. And over the whole thing, there's the 4 levels with lots of detail. And of course, I've got no intention of boring you with the detail. Suffice to say that that's what the full framework currently looks like. And if you're interested at all, you're very welcome to give us some feedback on the framework. I've put a couple of links in there, and I'm sure that Evie can place those into the chat just in case you're interested. One is a link to a framework document itself, so if you want to look at the framework. If you feel that's terrible, I must tell them what's wrong with it, you're very welcome to do so. There's a Google form also linked there. Of course, even if you only just have a quick look at it and make a couple of comments, you're very welcome to do so. That wonderful picture on the right-hand side was a course generated by AI. It's an educator who is teaching AI literacy, as you can very easily tell from the blank gaze and the meaningless waffle on the board. Yeah, so it's there if you're interested. I'm not expecting you necessarily to do that. It's just you can give some feedback if you wish. Now that's it for me. I can see it's 10:02. Now, thank you for coming for the content session. I am going to ask Lisa very briefly to just talk a little bit about a couple of our courses. If you have 0 interest in any of our offerings, then of course you're very welcome to leave. That's absolutely fine. But please do just stay for a couple of minutes. And of course, we do have other courses, but because this is primarily done through our education team, we just wanted to talk a little bit about this. So Lisa, can I pass over to you?
Absolutely. Kia ora, ka pai. Academy EX Mind Lab have 2 courses coming up for this July intake. The first is a postgrad certificate in digital and collaborative learning. That program's been going for 10 years, and it's a very, very different program to what it is now from what it was. It's 32 weeks live online, 1 session a week of 90 minutes. There's contemporary 21st century skills, changing the pedagogy of teaching to student-led, resilience, failure, collaboration, really, really powerful stuff. We get whole schools doing the program, from principal to teachers to teacher aides. They need a degree, a bachelor in anything, if no teaching qual. That is the first third of our Master of Contemporary Education. Again, we're really, really non-traditional, but really, really practical. So that Master of Contemporary Education, the main focus is a change project of your choice. So it could be a school focus, it could be your passion. It's up to you. We'll walk alongside you to get that thing done. That program can be done. All our programs are built for those working full-time, so that the Master of Contemporary Education can be done part-time, as in you're working full-time for 15 months, or full-time, as in you cannot work full-time for 10 months. And for July only, coming up, we have a scholarship for the postgrad, which leaves a $3,400 program for registered teachers to $100. And for the masters, we have scholarships for 50% of the whole fees, and they're still available. So if you have any questions, please reach out. We're all here to help and support you. Kia ora.
Oh, thanks, Lisa. And when you get the slides, there's a couple of things like Lisa's details in the video to watch later if you're interested in doing that. I just wanted to sort of see if there's anything else I could pick up in terms of questions in the chat. Great to hear, Donna, you did the postgrad certificate in 2016. Awesome. Great to hear. And there was a question about whether we've shared the framework. We've published a couple of early papers on the first round, but we've only just kind of opened up the final version on that website. We're working on a publication now, but we did want to sort of open it up to see if anybody wants to give any other feedback before we go any further. Yeah, Michael, yes, Scarlett Johansson's voice, that was an interesting conversation for sure. Yeah, I think we've probably. I know there's a lot of good chat, but probably not questions I necessarily attempt to answer at this stage. Does anybody have any sort of wrap up questions before I close the session? Okay, well, thank you so much for coming. I completely forgot to put a karakia into the slide set, and that means I didn't do an opening karakia. But if you don't mind, I will do a closing karakia because I feel I should, and then you know that it's kind of formally closed. Ka whakairia te tāpū kia waiti aitiara, kia tura ki whakata ai, kia tura ki whakata ai. Haumi e, hui e, tai ki. Hope you enjoyed the session. Thank you so much for coming. It's been, well, I enjoyed it, and it's nice to see such a good crowd of you. And yeah, I hope you come to other presentations in the future. So ka kite anō.